If you look at a lot of these YouTube channels, they're using soulless thumbnails. It all looks the same, it all has that same formula, format, and the sole goal is to get views. In this video, we're going to discuss how to not be a soulless thumbnail creator. I've worked in advertisement for the last decade. In the last company that I was the lead designer for, we made ads that got 10 million plus in revenue, and the reason for that was because I was able to make ads that spoke to the core audience. So today we're going to learn how to make some thumbnails that are not soulless, that are actually beautiful, well crafted, well thought out, and represent you, who you are. Let's begin. Let's go and start with this first one. I have a series of thumbnails here that we're going to go through, and I'm going to break them all down. So let's start with this first one first, which is pretty much a formula that's been used a lot. There's this before, and there's this after, and there's this versus. Now the thing that separates this out is because it uses these types of elements right here. So for example, you can see ambition and satisfaction has this type of bracket in it that just makes it more cool. Like, it's different than just if you used a regular font. This is just kind of shows that it's more in tune with things. And also, if you look at this versus, now this versus, I don't think they should have used the background on there. Like, you can see that there's a bit of a background, like right here. Of course, with this bolded thing, you don't see it as much, but yes, that's that thing. I don't think they need it there as much, but it is there. So for here, you have this whole vibe. This vibe is, it's dark, it's blue, and these are cinematic colors. It's teal and orange for the most part, but it's not super orange. It's slightly orange, and it's not super like tealish. So this is a cool one. If you're doing your own, pick your own color palette and then do this thing. Figure out how the font should be, where it looks like a cool way to present it. Maybe it's all lowercase, or maybe there's like some symbols before it or after. Like, we could even do an example right here. Like, if we do a Calidea Bode or something, like this could be before, and then I'll copy it, and then I'll do an after, you know, something like that. But since that is in right next to those text, we could do something like this, before and after, and then you just have your own photo in here. You know, it's super simple. We could even just go on my photos or something and just drag something in there, or some of these cats that I've been using. So here's maybe the before cat, let's drag it in, and the after cat. So this could be whatever it is that you're telling the story of. Now also, you notice before, well, I guess I didn't mention it as much, but they did put an effect to pop out this text. It's probably a lift or something. So for example, just go in effects, lift, and then you could really just bring out the text. Otherwise, it just gets lost in there. So this is, for example, one of the elements. You use your own colors, you have a before and after, and just use your own font and make it cool and creative. Now for this next one. This one here is interesting because there's a few elements here. So the first one is there's the text, and then there's the arrow, and then the other arrow. So it leads from this to this to this. And with the font, you can see that the font is, these are all the same, and then finally there's this big one right here, which is all caps. It's emphasizing this. They also have this thing right here, which is the underline. If you're on Canva, it's probably something like this, underlined. You can find your own underline, boom, underline right there, and then you just have your own underline. Like, a lot of times I see elements from these thumbnails that are actually from Canva as well, so I'm like, oh, this is kind of funny. But yeah, I don't think I see their underline here, but it very well might be in here. So they also use different elements like this too, like maybe a 3-. So for example, there's 3- here, so you could have this 3-, and then once you have this 3-, just bring it out, turn it around. I don't think theirs is the exact same one, but it does get a similar vibe out. Now this one is not white, so I'll just change it to white. And once you change it to white, basically similar kind of feel. So you have that, your object, the font that we also use that same effect from here. Remember that effect? Just to make the font pops out, and then you can see that they have a darker colorway. Now one thing else to note is that these were not, these two, the lens right here and the filter that they put on top of the lens was not part of the original photo. Now I think this might all actually could potentially not be part of the original photo. Like, all of this could be separate elements, like they had just gotten a background and then they could put this on top afterwards. So this is good for highlighting an object. Let's go on to the next one. This next one here It's very cool because they use this graphic. So like with the graphics, I mean not like graphic, but like the scratch graphics that's on top of the image here. This is Quentin Tarantino, who is a legendary filmmaker. And from here you can see a few things that they use that are a good trick to use, just to show that there's like some design element to it. So first, this person uses this color. It's a very Quentin Tarantino color. It could also be your own personal color palette as well, but depending on what your color palette is, you have it in here. And then they do this thing with the text. So you can see that this is filled, let's change this color. This is filled in text. This is empty text that is just underlined. And then right here as well. And then again, filled in text. And then you can also see that from here, there's like this 4 corners of a folded paper. Now, of course, I would probably use a different element. If you're on Canva, you can probably find something here like that grain paper texture and just go through and dig one of these grainy paper texture things, and then you could put it on top. So like maybe folded paper texture. So it really depends on what you want your thing to look like. And sometimes you have to go through a few. It's not always perfect. So you go through a few, you find one that works, and then you put it on top of the image that you're doing. But that's like the finalizing step. The in-between steps is to create this whole thing. Now let's break this down a little bit, because there are a lot of good elements that they are using. First of all, let's change this color a little bit. There is the rule of thirds. Now, if we just look at it like this, you can see that this person here, Quentin Tarantino, is occupying this third. All right, and at the same time, since he is the subject in this square, it's in this third, it's utilizing another rule of thirds in here. So this is the 1/3, another third, and this is the third. So he is in this section right here. And so this puts a lot of emphasis into him, and it uses, there's 2 rule of thirds being activated in here, which is one of the cool, beautiful parts of it. And then finally, this colorway in the background, very, very cool colorway that fits the vibe. It matches with this yellow as well. And then just to finish it off, I will show you that for the text, it's actually like 2 steps. So first, let's copy the text from earlier. There's the thumbnails. Probably the same font as this as well. Arnold in years. Oh, is it the same color as well? That's kind of funny, actually. I take a lot of inspiration from Quentin Tarantino, so potentially I could have used the same colors. Alright, so this is Arnold in years. Now the thing is, you would want to get rid of that. And then once you get rid of that, you move this out, and then you have this space. You need to remember what the space looks like. And then you do it again. You copy that in years. So we have in years. And now this is actually too much, so we gotta bring this in. So it does take a bit of adjustment for you to get these right, because it's not gonna always be right. So I'll do that. I'll use another effect, and then there's the effect to make it hollow, and then you essentially have that same effect. And so the background, the rule of thirds, and the grain is what makes this really nice. So we could list it out like this. Background, grain, rule of thirds, person in the center. Now for this as well, we could do blurred. Alright, moving on. This is a cool shot. Not so much to explain because it's almost self-explanatory because it's good. But let me just highlight some of the spots on why I think this is good. First of all, it's also using that rule of thirds, similarly to the one that we just saw here with Quentin Tarantino, except here he really utilizes the whole section for him. Now, it also draws attention because there is use of this cloud right here. Like, this is just a cool, interesting environment. And overall, it just highlights this person. We can even dive deeper into their outfit and how this speaks out to their core audience. So this one, the title is, I traveled the world for a year with no plan, a journey to becoming so-and-so. His name's Freedom. Now, if you look at his outfit as well, you can see that he's dressed in a way that's like, hey, I'm a photographer, I'm an artist, I'm a creative, but also at the same time, I'm some type of nomadic person that I'm out there, I'm living this adventurous lifestyle out in the open, and also I'm wearing these wired headphones, which are kind of hip right now. I'm using this beanie that is a probably organic wool knit beanie or something, speaks to a specific audience. I'm also wearing a ring, such as how I am here too. It adds a bit of visual element to the person. And then he has this Sherpa looking jacket, which for the most part, when I wear one, I always get compliments. So there's that as well. And then if you also look at his camera strap, he has a special camera strap that's not just the default camera strap that you get from your camera. And so overall, this has many different elements that bring together this whole vibe of how he travels the world as a nomad. His name is Freedom, and this just matches the vibe. Even his profile photo has that similar vibe. It's also the same outfit. So I guess this is working for him. Like this outfit, it really creates that vibe, so he's keeping that going. So for this one, I would just say rule of thirds, outfit coordination, where it's all working so well together, and the overall vibe of it. And again, if you want to see this, I'll have this shared in the description below, so you can just have a link and conveniently just look through all of them. And for this one, the next one, we have this guy with 2 essential lighting techniques. And his is cool because he has 2 different shots of him. First, there's this close-up one, which is probably showing what the shot will look like after he's lit this whole place. And then the second one right here that shows the whole setup. Big light, reflector right here probably, another light right here, and the scene that he's shooting this at, the decor in the background. And with this, you also have this similar color palette that is just this brownish, darkish, dare I say, cinematic color palette. And so this overall creates the vibe of his thing. And of course, if you look at it, it's also well framed again, because here he is. This one's not even using the rule of thirds so much as it's implementing the reason why the rule of thirds is helpful, because this is kind of 66% of the image, because he has the rule of thirds here. If you draw out the graph, you can see that this bottom portion is this rule of thirds, and then his figure itself is another main centerpiece of the other rule of thirds. Now this is just good composition here. Also, again, if you look at rule of thirds, this one is more so combining a lot of different triangles. But if you do a rule of thirds, you can see that he as the subject is in here, and there are many other elements to this that make it look really good, such as the room being right here, some more triangles being right here. And essentially, if you want to make photos look good, it's about having as many triangles as you can in the image. And so you can see the depth of this image just based on this alone. Alright, moving on. We have this one, what you got wrong about ISO. And this one is cool because if you look at the frame, or like the 4 frames in here, these are all probably just their best cinematic shots. And here, this one is actually a pretty simple one. You have the text, and then you have the images in the back. So you have your best photos, your most vibe-creating photos, and then you have the text to describe that. Now the text part is easy, we'll just do it for fun. What you got right about art, for example. And of course, consider how the spacing is on this. So you can see from theirs, their spacing is a lot closer together than the default. So if you do that spacing, it might be something like this. And you can change this color again to that dark yellow that I like. And then we have something like this. And basically you have your color palette in the back, ideally a darker one that fits this yellow, but if you have another color palette that fits with whatever your main text color palette is that looks good behind, then definitely use that. Okay, so this one, I actually really like this one because it's similar to what I do. He is describing and teaching something, and for him, actually, you could also see a funny thing too, is that sometimes you might notice that I have my light on the back just pop up. This is his light on the back that's just lighting the back portion of him. And this is what he's talking about. This is him. It's framed where he's in the center, and then he has an arrow that's outlined pointing at something else here. Now you also would see this in some of the thumbnails that I do too, because one, the element here, the border outline, drags or gets attention to the image or frame that is in here, and then this image in here is kind of like a cinematic looking trailer, so it gives this sort of reputation and credibility. And then this photo here of him is similarly to how this is lit, so you can see that there's this light shining down on me. It's not super dark in my background today, but if I turn off all the lights and I just have that going and maybe a small light over there, it'll have a similar effect. So he's using cinematic lighting techniques and then outlining himself and then using that to point at this poster banner thing. Now you'll also see, like, subtly, is that behind that as well is this type of drawing or whatever, and it's probably what's behind him in the background. So he's taken a screenshot of what he is talking with or when he's talking in the video, and then he's using that to implement into the thumbnail. Alright, moving down, we got this really cool creator style that I've been seeing a lot, which is just a ton of photos from this creator. And the thing is, she has taken a lot of photos from her lifestyle and then she crops them out. If you're using, for example, Canva, it's super easy. You just drag your image in there and then you can use a background remover for it. So for example, these ones, this one might just be a selfie, but for this one, it's her cropped out. Sometimes I've seen other creators with a bunch of cropped out images like accessories or them and whatnot, and they paste it in. And then ultimately, this one is just a collection of what she's been doing because, well, this is 6 months is all you need. And the thing is here, if you notice, it's the text placement. So how this text look, and it's a technique that I use a lot as well. How this text look is that this whole thing is ordered in a specific way. So if you look at is all you need is about a third of this months thing, or like this. Well, that one is a bit close, but like this. And so if you divide this into the rule of thirds, you have another way to organize text. Ultimately, how to look and make things aesthetically pleasing, rule of thirds. And then with this as well, you can see that the months part comes down to about a third of the 6. So this would be the first third, this would be the second third, and then this is the third third. And then you have this fill up the 2/3 here. And then ultimately all of this is a collection of photos put in a darker background because this text is white. And you could also have a special effect on maybe your number, have it cursive or something like that, just to make it stand out. And then for the months part right here, she has it in all caps. Okay, let's talk about this one. You only get one. This is a beautiful shot. I like it because it's just highlighting this like majestic life situation thing that's happening here. And what it has is text and a beautiful image in the background. Now, if you're trying to do something that is just a film-like thing with a massive message like this one, are you letting life slip away? This is the perfect photo for it. So you have a photo, and then you have the text here. The text, I'll just show you how easy it is. It's actually just Helvetica bold, and we'll make, of course, the trend right now is to have your space close, and it's a everyone only gets what? One life. So everyone only gets, and then we'll make this white, and then we'll have this duplicated again, and then we can have one life in the different color, which is that cinematic yellow, and then boom, you would have something similar to this. And essentially that's the whole technique. Although let's change this color to white, and this will fit the scene there. Now you could also throw in a epic photo in the back. Now for me, it might be one of these surf photos that I had from back in Bali with my friend Troy. So I could just drag that in, and then it would look something like this. Everyone only gets one life. And of course, you have to use that effect to get that like lift to it so that it pops out. Otherwise, it doesn't get shown enough. And also, if you notice, they actually used lowercase. So everyone only gets one is essentially what they had. We'll just change it to one life, for example. And there you go. Although I would change this sizing a little bit, play around with it, but essentially that's the element. Now, finally, we have this one. This one is a good overall one to do that's safe, and at the same time, it follows the trend, but also looks pretty neat. So here's what she does. She has her in the photo, and then she has herself outlined and removed from the original background. So then she can separate and have this text in the back. Now the text, you can also notice that this is about a third of shadow. So as it's a third of shadow, this is what makes it pleasing. And with the text as well, since we're drawing attention to this, it has a serif. And these days too, if you notice that there's like a lot more serif fonts. Like sans serif is in, but it's more millennial. And as it's moving towards something that's more fresh and different, I think people are moving away from serif fonts, or sans serif, I mean, and then going into serif fonts. And then from here, you can see that she has more arrows, design elements that point to her. She is holding up something, and then another arrow pointing to the thing here that she's holding up to, and just text describing it. So I use this technique in some of my thumbnails as well. It's simple, it's easy to do, and I think it's a safe choice, but also aesthetically pleasing. So the takeaway here is now you actually have some strategies and thumbnails that you can copy and get some emulation or some inspiration from that you can apply to your own. The resources, this template that I just went through, it's down below. So if you want to edit it yourself, you can just go on Canva and edit based on what we just went through in this video. If you enjoyed that, subscribe, leave me a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.